It's a murder mystery set in Oxford College about a young man that I play called Martin, who travels to Oxford to study under a professor that he idolizes called Arthur Seldon, played by John Hurt. And John Hurt is a mathematician professor. And upon arriving in Oxford, very shortly after he arrives, there's a murder, and both John Hurt and my character discover the body, and that sort of sets forth a series of crimes that we work together to try and decipher who the killer is using mathematics.
What are you doing here?
I live here. What's your excuse?
Visit an old friend. I received a note during the conference.
What did it say?
The first of the series. Logical series with serial murders.
So you mean there's going to be another murder after this one?
That's sort of the simple way to describe the movie, but in a lot of ways it's much more complicated than that. I think it's a movie about obsession, it's about humanity, it's about sort of having idealism and having those ideas sort of destroyed. It's about, concepts that, things are going on that you don't really understand or are different than what is perceived. It's about manipulation.
The only perfect crime that exists is not the one that remains unsolved, but the one which is solved with the wrong culprit.
My preparation for the role was primarily just understanding the character. This character, when you first meet him, he's very idealistic. He's very self-confident, self-assured, almost arrogant in his intelligence. And he thinks that he's going to impress this idol of his, this mathematician professor that John Hurt plays. And he doesn't impress him. In fact, he's embarrassed in front of an entire school. And he then begins, as a result of this murder, he then begins this relationship with this professor. He gets to work with this professor, and they intellectually sort of stimulate one another. But what you come to realize is that Martin is actually obsessed with this person and will forego anything in his life to be as intelligent, or if not more intelligent than him.
I'm scared.
If we manage to discover the secret meaning of numbers, we will know the secret meaning of reality. To be honest, the idea of working with Alex was one of the reasons I really wanted to be a part of the film. I wasn't familiar with Alex's work before I read the script. And in fact, I think when I met Alex, I hadn't seen any of his films. But I loved him so much, and his energy and his sense of humor and his passion, and his unique vision, I think, for the film was what really excited me, and I knew I couldn't say no. And working with him was amazing. The atmosphere that he created on set was so much fun and hilarious. And I think he finds a lot of comedy in his work. And I think that this movie, for all intents and purposes, is a very serious, sort of dramatic thriller of a sense. But there still is a sense of comedy. I think in some ways Alex couldn't make a movie without there being some comedy in there somewhere. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Stooges, and I love Iggy as well. So the fact that I'm a fan has a lot to do with it. I think if I wasn't, I don't know that I would be as interested. But it's scary. The idea of playing Iggy Pop is really scary, to be honest. Which is good. I mean, ultimately, it's the experiences that scare us in life that are the ones that I think are the most important. Because it's really those experiences that I think allow us to grow when we face our fears like that. So I'm excited about it. It's going to be very different and a completely different experience for me as an actor. Beyond knowing a lot about him and doing sort of research that requires reading just to get a real sense of his upbringing and his life during the Stooges, it's really a physical role, much more physical than anything I've done in the past. So it really requires me to sort of lose all body fat, and he has a very specific kind of body. And I'm thin, but I don't have his body. So I'm going to have to do a lot of work in that regard. And I don't have his voice. has a very deep voice. His speaking voice is very deep. And so I'm going to have to work on that, I think. Because I think that's a massive part of him. Beyond the way that he articulates himself in a very specific way. He's very eloquent and very well-spoken. So the way that he speaks is relatively familiar to me, but it's his tone that's going to be difficult. So it's all those things, and probably a lot of others.